Hey guys, Anita Cordell here, kcadvocate.com, here to talk about your real estate issues or giving you examples of some. And I'm just sitting here in my car right now. This just happened to me today, and so I wanted to talk about buyer and seller remorse. And it's a real issue. It doesn't happen very much, but when it does, it kind of stings. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So in my tenure of selling real estate, I have had this happen a few times. I tell clients it's not a matter of, if it's going to happen to, the opposite side. It's just a matter of when. And so most agents have experienced that at one point or another, and you just have to really have plan B and encourage your clients that life is not over. But anyway, so seller's remorse, what is that? That is really where a seller puts their house up on the market. They have gotten an agent. They have gotten pictures taken. They've maybe even gotten a client. A buyer has come in, written an offer, and they're on their way to selling their home with a closing date and the whole bit. And all of a sudden, they wake up one morning, they get kind of freaked out, and they think, "Oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? What are we doing? We love this home. We don't want to sell it." And they call their listing agent and they say, "We want to back out. We don't want to sell it. We want to stay here." That's changing their mind. And so depending on where they are in the contract, it's going to depend on how that affects all of the parties. The same way with a buyer. If a buyer has remorse, it's called buyer's remorse. And so if the same thing, opposite side, if a buyer finds a property and they're all excited and they're getting ready for inspections, and all of a sudden they wake up and just get freaked out and call the agent and say, "Hey, we don't want to buy this house. We want to rent instead," or whatever. So what do we do? This is where it's so important to have a professional representing you and really walk through the process. I had a broker one time who gave me some longevity, I guess is a good word for it, but long-term advice. And what he told me was that you cannot ever force a seller to sell a property, and you cannot ever force a buyer to buy a property. You just cannot do it. They have to want it enough to go through the process. And so if there's buyer's remorse, you just have to deal with it. Now, how that can affect a seller is obviously the house has been taken off of the market, and there's a little bit of sting to that, and that buyer or that seller may have lost a few potential buyers in the midst of all of that. But there's really, how do you know that? And then the same thing with the buyer. A buyer is feeling bad about it and all this. And so if you really are working to make the best for your client, then you have to proceed, moving forward with the most positive attitude, knowing that depending on where you are in the contract, there are certain consequences to those decisions. Now, one consequence could be from a buyer's standpoint that say they've completed the inspection, they've lost the money out there. Say they've passed the inspection, they won't get their earnest money back because it wasn't inspection related, and they didn't change their mind during that inspection period. So there's consequences, monetary consequences, that are involved with a buyer's remorse when it comes to that, depending on where it's at in the contract. The same thing with a seller. If the seller has remorse, then they might have to forego the earnest check, and they might not be able to get that earnest money check pocketed in their pockets if they cancel at a certain time within the contract. But even despite any monetary consequences, there's always consequences of frustration. And my encouragement to anybody dealing with buyer's remorse, and whether it's an agent or a buyer or a seller or whomever, there's multiple people that are involved in the consequences, and there are more than just that one person who's having the remorse. It's affecting other people. And so the consequences of having frustration and loss of trust and those types of things are real. But my encouragement is to stay focused and not let this hiccup make you trip up. So don't let the hiccup make you trip up. I just made that up right now. So with that being said, if you've ever had buyer's remorse, don't feel guilty about it per se, in the sense that, you know, you're not trying to mess people's lives up. We understand that. And if you're seller's remorse, you're not trying to mess people's lives up. We understand that. And if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you are a seller and you've had a buyer come in and now they have buyer's remorse, realize that those buyers, we are not walking in those shoes, and people are not trying to mess your life up. So move on, have an agent to help you work through those feelings, because real estate is emotional. It is. It's emotional. And if you can find an agent that can help you walk through those emotions, you'll be better off. So don't let the hiccups trip you up, okay? So as always, thanks for coming by my YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, certainly feel free to contact me. And you can go to my website, www.ctiyadvocate.com, and watch my videos there. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And remember, Anita Cordell, an advocate for you. Have a great day.